Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Following a ruling last week by a judge that said that the decision of the Kennedy Center's board to add President Trump's name onto the facade of the building was unlawful, the General Counsel's Office for the Performing Arts Center informed the staff through a memo that they must immediately remove Trump's name from the branding on any official documents or forms. It seems at long last the president's stain on the Performing Arts Center is finally being washed off for real. And it wasn't just the paperwork. The memo also told staff to take the name off of social media accounts, email signatures, voicemail messages, and that the indoor and outdoor signage must be altered by the 12th of June. It seems the scrubbing of his name off the Performing Arts Center will be pretty thorough once it's complete. I have to confess to being pretty happy at this news, since the President adding his name to the John F. Kennedy Performing Arts Center was such an obvious act of vanity, such an obvious attempt to stroke his own ego. It bordered on the obscene. His name had no place on that institution, and finally, at long last, that's being corrected. The Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts was supposed to be a tribute and a memorial to President John F. Kennedy, a leader the entire country both loved and admired. So the idea that this president, a leader that nobody respects or loves, would deem to put his name on it was an absolute desecration and should never have been done in the first place. But since it was, at the very least, it can be undone just as quickly as it went up. At the same time, I suppose slapping his name on something that someone else built and someone else established is practically the Trump brand. So, from that perspective, it was not surprising that he tried to do that here. What's interesting is only a matter of weeks ago, the executive director of the Kennedy Center claimed that they couldn't remove President Trump's name from the Kennedy Center because it would cause irreparable harm to the institution and would sever a vital fundraising connection, cause the center's developmental efforts to be fundamentally destabilized. Basically saying that the president couldn't possibly fundraise for the center or commit to giving money to it if it didn't have its name on it. So removing the president's name from the center would basically be taking money away from it, so it could not happen. Sounded like complete nonsense when he said it, and I think it will be proven to be so. As I'm sure would come as no surprise, the executive director of the Kennedy Center, a man named Charles Flocka, was installed by the president himself. So his attempt to argue that the removal of the president's name was impossible without risking massive financial loss was very clearly a partisan attempt to keep his boss happy. The president's attempt to slap his name on a building that did not belong to him to honor him for something he did not do is very obviously another attempt from him to build a monument to himself, likely because he knows that if he doesn't do it, no one else will, nor should they. Our current president is not a leader worth immortalizing through statues or building. And the fact he was willing to take someone else's memorial and put his name on it to make it about himself only proves that point. One thing about this decision that's kind of interesting is actually just how little pushback there's been to it from the administration. You would think, considering just how hard they pushed to get it on the building to begin with, and how hard they tried to justify it remaining there, one would expect there would be just as hard a pushback now that it has been mandated that it be removed. But that's just not what we're seeing. They said they were going to appeal the ruling by the judge that mandated that it be taken off the Kennedy Center, but then they never did. And it's hard to speculate exactly why that is. If I had to hazard a guess, it really is just a complete guess. It feels like maybe the reason the president is not pushing back hard on keeping his name on the Kennedy Center is that he's already moved on to another project. He's now focused on ruining the Lincoln Memorial. So, like a toddler, he's already moved on to the next shiny thing and lost interest in this one. I'd like to say that it's because he decided that his focus was better suited to actually doing his job and being a competent and successful leader. But as we all know, that has never been a priority of his, and he certainly has never been one. Even so, I have to admit it's a bit mystifying why the president has not fought this a little harder, since he loves to put his name on things. It's practically all he knows how to do. Many of his Trump properties have absolutely nothing to do with him and only bear his name because he's put it on them. So this thankfully temporary Kennedy Center rebrand seemed to be yet another example of it. The president was certainly mad about the decision that his name would have to be taken off the Kennedy Center. He was unhappy that a judge undid what his hand-picked stooges on the Kennedy Center board had done. Other than venting his anger on social media, it doesn't seem like there's any action being taken to stop it. That in itself feels like a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if his attention was on trying to fight this name removal, his focus would not be on trying to find something else to ruin. But at the same time, if he doesn't put up any strong resistance or obstacles, the removal process will be much faster and easier, and it can just happen. And we can all rejoice but sooner at the fact that it is finally gone, once and for all. It could also be that he knew all along just how unpopular this move actually was. According to a YouGov poll taken all the way back in December, 66% of respondents said they did not approve of the name change, and only 18% of those respondents said that they did approve of it. The president is certainly no stranger to having massive disapproval ratings in polls, but it could be he felt that given just how unpopular this decision was, that it wasn't worth really fighting it and just moving on to the next thing. He certainly has plenty of actual presidential duties on his plate. Fighting this really would have been a waste of time and maybe would have been seen as such even by his most devoted followers. So maybe he felt it was simply not worth it, especially when he could do other things that they would praise him for. I would say it goes without saying that President Trump's name should never have gone on the front of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. It should never have gone on the branding. It should never have been associated with it at all. It was so obviously an attempt at putting his name on a thing that people already loved, so that people would have to love him by association, and that plan has failed. And how could it not in this case? Donald Trump doesn't know anything about the performing arts. He does not care about culture. He is a man devoid of culture. So to put his name on this Center for Performing Arts was an insult both to President John F. Kennedy in particular, but also an insult to the performing arts in general. And all of that is not even touching on the legality of the renaming in the first place, something that he did not have the authority to do because, as has been cited many times before, only Congress had the power to rename the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And since he did not go through the proper channels and simply had his hand-picked board approve the renaming on their own, it would always be a question of when, not if, his name would be struck from the building. In an amusing turn of events, the when actually came a bit sooner than anyone expected. While the mandate said that they had until the 12th of June to remove Trump's name from the front of the Performing Arts Center's building, as I was recording this, it was reported that workers had already begun removing the lettering from the building's facade. A move which I can certainly understand. Why wait when you can just get the work done right away and expedite the process as much as possible? There had been the question of compliance hanging over this entire endeavor. Yes, a judge had ruled that they had to remove the Trump name off of the building. Yes, the mandate had been brought down from the general counsel to remove the Trump name from all the branding. But the question was, how long was that actually going to take? And were they going to actually do it just because the court said they had to, just because the council told them to? It was unclear how much they were going to drag their feet on actually doing it. But with the news that the removal has begun a week ahead of schedule, that question now has no relevance. The answer is it's happening, and it's happening now. Much like the president's name is being literally stripped from the building. It won't be long before his influence on this country will likewise be stripped away, as it should be. The placement of Trump's name on the front of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts was like a physical stain, a perfect metaphor for the stain that he has left cast upon our country during his time in office. Just as we rejoice to see his name literally removed from that building, we will soon be able to rejoice in his removal from office and from his effect on this country. And that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. All right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice. Until next time, when I cut you off, another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it.